Hey, what's up, people? This is the relaunch of the Yorker. Uh, we wanted to do some episodes during the World Cup, but everyone was really busy, especially during the summer. People hate being indoors. But man, this is something that prompted both me and Rinat to come on here because things have gone really downhill, and to the point where people don't even want to talk about it. Like even the most diehard Bangladeshi fans, they don't come online no more. So hopefully, me and Rinat, we could put a light on the team and figure out what really happened. So Rinat, I think it wasn't a good World Cup. We were all expecting a little better from the team, especially how the last two matches turned out. What do you make of the whole controversy thing with Papon saying that they got a big break? Just have you heard that? Like just before the two matches
Yeah.
with India and Pakistan, that's not their style. The boys are not used to getting that big of a break. Or
Yeah.
I mean, what do you make of it?
Well, I think part of the reason why Bangladesh did not perform so well is because they probably lacked uh, in fitness compared to the rest of the seven teams that ended up ahead of Bangladesh. Um, Personally, I think Bangladesh finished as good as the sixth, which is their normal current ODI position right now. So it's not a very disappointing World Cup, but it's also a World Cup that showed us that we probably deserve to be one of the bottom five teams, and we're not better than that. Uh, but
Yeah,
in terms of the whole controversy thing, I think you know it's very easy to just pinpoint that one single issue and then use that as the main primary reason about why we failed. But I think I think anyone who saw the games, I think they'll agree that the last 3 or 4 games, Bangladesh looked like it's a team that's out of steam, and the intensity. If you look at the first game where we played South Africa, and if you look even the games we lost, even if you look at the games against England, where we lost pretty comprehensively, I think the boys looked a little bit more in sync. And by the latter end of the tournament, I think everyone was running out of steam. So, and that's to me was the biggest reason why Bangladesh ended up where they did.
yeah, for sure. They everyone who watched all of the games, they could tell how there was a big drop off in the intensity, even in the
Yeah.
body language of the guys. Uh, But wasn't this kind of expected in a way? Because I mean, we might get into a little bit here because I know you like the big our traditional like the main five. You've always backed them, and I haven't backed them as much as you did. And one of the reasons was a moment like this. Like I kind of knew it in one sense because the other teams they improve too. It's not just our big five; they're all coming up with new talent all the time. And as much as they praise our big five, I don't think they're that special. To be honest with you, I don't think they're gonna go down as like legends.
See,
Yeah,
I backed the five, the our big five, because they have delivered in the past, right? When they don't deliver, there is no reason for us to back them, right? In this World Cup, other than Shakib, the rest of the four did not deliver. So at that point, of course, I will criticize some of these players. But again, here's the thing. So, and it's like it's like what you said, right? So if you other than Shakib, I don't think any of the other four players are special. They were good players, and all of these players I think are hardworking players. They have dedicated a uh, lot of their life behind Bangladesh cricket, and credits to them for that.
yeah,
But in terms of the fact that at this age you would expect these players to have more consistency than they do, right? I mean, talent is something that, you if you look at their talent, what they're capable of, that's probably on par with core players of most other teams. But those players are capable of actually performing in a more consistent level than these players. That's probably the biggest difference maker.
Yeah. No, you said they delivered in the past, but they delivered. They started winning us games. So if that's what you call delivering, and I don't really mind because I know where we started. Like I've started watching cricket from the my earliest memories were from the 1997 ICC when we qualified. So I know we're how bad we sucked at one point. So yeah, by
Yeah,
delivered, if you mean started winning us games, yeah. But they never really got us any sort of silverware, and they only recently won their
yeah,
first Tri Nations. That wasn't this
right,
year, right? So
right.
it's
Yeah, no, in terms of achievement, yeah, that's absolutely correct. What I meant was that, if you look at our ODI stats in the past 6 7 years, we have only gone upwards. We haven't gone at a rate that we would have liked to, but we just haven't gone downwards in any point of those last 6 7 years. We were going steadily upwards, but right now we seems to be in a halt where we are not going upwards anymore, and this can only go downwards from here. So at this point, though, I mean that the whole Big Five strategy that goes down the drain, because there was a big stage. There we had these guys that are experienced, as much experience as you can give them, and yet they haven't delivered. So at this point, to me, the Big Five strategy is it doesn't exist anymore.
great. No, we pretty much agree. So this is a good point to transition over to the Sri Lanka series. So most
Yeah,
people thought they would at least bring in one or two guys like Yasir, but they got in Shafiul and damn
yeah,
the other Daijul, people we have seen before already.
yeah.
They'll never be like if we like since we know the ceiling of the Big Five now. So these guys will never even come close to that, and yet those are the type of people that they brought back to the fold.
Hmm.
So
Right.
that's just bizarre. I mean, and I think that's the reason why most people left the forum and all the online all that stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, I think more people left after the Sri Lankan series
Yeah,
compared to the World Cup, because the World Cup was tough. It was the toughest World Cup we could have ever played. So it was somewhat understandable mm, for the most patient fans like me and you. But then the Sri Lankan series was basically like it was a deal breaker. But I think so. What the strategy was by Bangladesh cricket, I think they played it the safest they could. So basically, what they thought is that by bringing in some of the so-called experienced guys, they can protect some of these, less fit and then
but
less informed players.
but Rina,
It doesn't make sense.
going
It makes no sense.
going with the most
Mhm.
experience got you number 8 in the World Cup. That's what it
Yeah,
did for you. So any
right.
common sense would tell you that no, that's not the strategy. Like turn everything over, like start it fresh. Go with three new guys, like Yasir and two other Afif and Zakir Hassan or some. Go with those three.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah,
So
you finished your point. Yeah,
no, but no, exactly what you said. I think the Sri Lankan series, it should have been a point where they should have been like, okay, so we need to start at zero, and we need to not focus on winning games right now, but we need to start preparing a team 4 years for 4 years down the road, right? So they were so focused on winning games right away that they're missing the bigger picture right now, right? Because if we are looking at next World Cup, and we need to be looking at next World, that's how England won this World Cup, is because they started planning from their failure on the last one. So if we go on that route, we need to have players that we think can play next World Cup right now. These guys needs to be in the squad right now. You need to give guys like Yasir Ali 4 years from now, right? You can't be bringing someone like you can't bring a new guy like 6 months before the World Cup and expect them to perform. It doesn't work like that, right? You need to give them ample opportunities. So this is something that, again, Bangladesh Cricket Board selection, I think there is no analytical or even half decent cricket fan in Bangladesh that would agree with the selection process in Bangladesh. It has never happened.
Yeah. I mean, this is just weird. Like, I know we're just fans, and those guys are paid to make the selections and stuff. And they've been cricketers before, all three of them, right? So you would think,
They're not
yeah,
they're not paid to make selections. At this point, they're paid to rotate players. That's all they're doing, right? Because you're not bringing fresh blood. You're just rotating discarded players back and forth, right? Like Bijoy got selected, right? And then Shofiul got selected. You're basically rotating, right? So when they fail, they're going to bring another bunch of players that just got discarded recently, and then the rotation continues.
true. I just remember, what do you make of this one? I don't know if you have read this article or watched this video, but Shakib apparently wanted to drop Mahmudullah Riyad because he
Yeah,
was injured. And I mean, again, to me, it's a no-brainer. If you're injured, you shouldn't play. But I'm
yeah.
really getting worried now with this bunch. And again, I know we have gotten it over this issue in the past, me and you, where I wanted them removed like quickly, wanted to expedite the process, start afresh, whereas you wanted like to give them a big platform like the World Cup. You wanted that to happen. So have you like where are you right now? Like, have you reconsidered or like what do you think of the situation? But the attitude is what I'm getting at. Like Mushfiq not giving up his gloves or Mahmudullah playing with injuries. I mean, come on, man. Like, what do you think?
Well, again, right. First of all, the whole Shakib and Riyad thing, I think it has been blown out of proportion. I think what Shakib did probably say is that he probably wanted Riyad rested, not dropped. There's a difference between those two, right? Because Shakib, we can see the guy who has put in 200% in this World Cup, and then here we see uh, someone that's senior, that's not fit and yet still playing, and that's doing more harm than good. He probably at that point got frustrated and wanted him rested until he recovers. I don't think Shakib is the kind of guy that would want Riyadh dropped, right? Because Shakib is someone who understands cricket and he understands the importance of an experienced player. So I think it has been blown out of proportion. I think the media needs to step in and stop doing this, because whatever you say, I mean, the big five, now it's going to be big four, because with Mash retiring, guys like Riyadh, guys like Mushi, guys like Tamim, they're not retiring just yet. We still need them in the team. We can see all the new guys that are coming in. They're not ready to be handed over the whole squad. And Shakib can't do it by himself. So we need those guys. So it's very important that the senior guys have some kind of mutual respect
Yeah,
and some good chemistry.
yeah. No, no, I agree, and you're right. The Bangladeshi media, and I watch some of their channels. They do have a tendency to sensationalize some of
Yeah,
these news stories. So yeah, I shouldn't have used the word dropped. He wanted him rested. Yeah, that's and when asked about it, he didn't even want to talk.
that's what I think.
And,
That's what I think.
and moreover, it was an internal issue. Like Shakib said it himself that he didn't appreciate how it was brought up. But I was
Yeah.
getting more to the attitude. Like, what does it say about Riyadh? That if you're, do you really don't trust like the youngsters in the team that much? Like, you have no zero confidence in them that you're gonna play with like almost a broken rib and uh,
I I think the problem started with when they knew that Riyadh is partially injured. He walked into the tournament partially injured, right? He was not clear to bowl. At that point, they needed to take a clear replacement of him just in case he doesn't turn up, right? And the only guy they picked was Musaddiq, and Musaddiq wasn't performing up to his potential. So at that point, it was a call between playing a half fit Riyadh or an out of form and inconsistent Sabir. So it I don't think at that point the coaching staff had much choice. Having said that, I still think if someone is injured, they should be rested. I mean, because you do more damage to that player in the long run, right? Uh, but again, I'm just thinking they didn't take a replacement for Riyadh, and that's probably the reason why he couldn't be dropped. Because if you look at it, we didn't have a finisher in the squad. Mossadegh had one good finishing innings in that try series. After that, he just didn't turn up. And then Sabir was inconsistent all the way through. It was questionable. His whole selection to the World Cup was questionable in the first place. So that's probably the reason,
Well,
in my opinion.
Mossadegh did do well in the other two opportunities he had. They were short-lived innings, so he couldn't stay there. He couldn't get a not out, but his strike rate was pretty good. But no, listen, I understand the value of having someone really experienced there. It's just there was also the fact that in one of the games I'm just so disappointed. I like my memory isn't right, but Riyadh basically he when we needed like I don't know like 180 of 100 balls or something like that.
It was against England, I think. Yeah, you're talking
He
about.
took his foot
They
in the
played a
gas.
really.
So he gave up basically. He threw the towel like with all that overs to go. He just thought
Yeah,
he wanted a nice innings for himself, and people were also playing that up. But anyway, I
yeah,
actually don't want to focus on that too much because I want to look towards the future of this team because right now it looks pretty bad because that Sri Lanka team, Rina, they're not a good
yeah.
team. They're not a good team at all.
No,
To lose to them
not at all.
3-0, even if it's the opening round, and
Yeah,
Sri Lankan and Bangladesh conditions are not that far apart, So
no,
I mean, to me,
no.
in the modern era, this is like one of the lowest points of Bangladesh cricket.
I see. I'll tell you something. And I've been wanting to say this. I think the problem is the seniors and the juniors have two different problems. The seniors, you have guys like Riyadh, Mushfiq, Tamim, that just have too much ego. When you are injured, you don't try to somehow justify your spot in the team. You take yourself off the team, you recover, you practice, you come back. There's no shame in that, right? But they have too much ego. When they're injured, they somehow feel like that they can drop themselves, and they somehow feel like one or two good games can turn their injury around, which is not the case, which is weird. Why would you think like that? So they need to set their ego aside and focus focus on the formats they're good at, focus on their fitness, focus on their responsibilities, and focus on their positions. Then you have the juniors, and the juniors, I think you have guys like Shomo, Mossadegh, or Liton. These are the guys that have been playing for us for a long time. They should no longer be considered as juniors, right? But I think they're still in that phase where they feel like they they're good, they're fine with just playing a supporting role, and they need to step out of that mentality and be like, I have played in this team for a couple years now, and I should be held accountable to play more than a supporting role at this point.
Yeah, and I agree, but I'm also fearful because if that's what you say is true, then we're in deep trouble because
We are.
no new guys are coming up who's showing that type of attitude. And the last guys
Yeah.
who went on to become the big five, they took each one of them like lots of games, and we can't give that type of opportunities anymore to the new guys, which is kind of unfair to them in one sense, but not really because with situation
No,
as it changes, you have to adapt, and
it changes.
this is where Bangladesh is at right now. We are seventh ranked team. We want to go to sixth potentially, but then it's bad news because any of those new guys, I actually still see them in a supporting role for the next 2 3 years, unless you throw a wild card in there like Yasir Ali or one of those new guys like Afif. I saw a few of his games in BPL, and he's got. I thought he was a good bat, but you never know unless you give them a shot because you never know who's going to be like the next Shakib unless you try them out.
See, the problem with these guys is that every single one of these youngsters we brought in, whether it's Mehdi, whether it's Shomo or Mustafiz, even Mustafiz, these are the guys that started with a spark, and then that somehow solidified their position in the team, and then they just stopped trying or improving, you know. and you can't do that. Like we get it. Like if you even if you bring guys like Yasir Ali or Afif, they may have like a good opening outburst of their career, but then you need to have that drive to keep that going, right? You don't just rest after you have secured your spot for a few series. You need to keep that going. You need to keep that impression. Something Mustafiz and Mehdi Miraz and Shom, I think, failed miserably. With they all started the career with by making a huge statement, not just in Bangladesh but in world cricket. Like if you think about it, Shomo, Mustafiz, both of these guys, the world cricket was excited that we are seeing some great talents from Bangladesh. But then they sort of faded to a point now that we almost have to protect them, right? Like Mustafi's his role in the team has to be protected now because he's someone that can contain runs.
No, no, I get it. So how do we get out of this hole? Like to me, we didn't gain anything from the Sri Lanka series. It would be better off if we just rested the big four because Mash was injured and just got new players. It couldn't have been any worse than what it did. Like I sincerely believe that because these three games we lost, they weren't close games either. They beat us pretty bad, and I just don't know what the big four did. Whether they're mentally exhausted or why couldn't they even make it a close match in either of those three games? But
Well, this was just an invitation from the Sri Lankan Cricket Board because they needed to have a team over in Sri Lanka to prove that the security is back to normal. I don't think there was any plans from either boards to start fresh. It was simply responding to an invitation. That's about it.
I,
And it sucks
it's
because
true. But I want to believe it, which is
I think that is the case because there was no other agenda for having like an ODI series right after the World Cup that was so long, you know. And I think it was hard for both teams, right? For Bangladesh, it probably was worse because they basically played a lot of games leading up to the World Cup, that whole try series, and that was probably worst thing to do.
yeah. No, you're right. So yeah, I guess we'll wrap this up. It was good talking about the team, or not so good, depending on how you look at it. But it was good to get off the chest and just see where everyone's at. I know people are really depressed. There are people out there who won't watch a Bangladesh game for the next year, I bet, because they're so heartbroken by what just happened in Sri Lanka. And I want to be one of those people too, but it's you can't take it too seriously. It's just a game, All you can do is
Yeah,
support your team. Any last words?
I think I think yeah, I think we have had some low points in throughout last 10 years or so. If I remember correctly, 2014 was a terrible year.
Yeah.
We managed to turn things around. I'm sure we'll come back. Right now, we probably because there's too many things that needed to be sorted out before the Sri Lankan series. We needed to sort out the captaincy. We needed to sort out
Coach.
fitness, coaching staff, management. We needed to sort out a lot of things, and none of those were sorted. So I hope that the board really sits down, and I think they seem to be pretty active right now. They're hunting for the coaches, and with the list I'm seeing, the coaching, it looks very promising so far. So it tells me that they're willing to spend the money, but at the same time, BCB needs to realize that throwing money at the problem is not going to solve it alone. They need to change themselves because there's a lot of issues within the board that's preventing the team from improving. But about the coaching, maybe we can do another episode sometime soon. But yeah, it looks it. I hopefully it gets better. Hopefully we get a reset. But again,
But
we have a really good chance of going down even further because we have a series against Afghanistan, and
yep.
we are so not favorites to win it. So
Wow. They're incredible words. Like not favorites versus Afghanistan, who just came into cricket like 2, 3 years ago. Uh,
yeah,
but yeah,
and it's sad.
I kind of agree. They're kind of holding us back, especially the selectors. And since they've made it clear that they're not going to change, they're going to stick with the same people. So for the next 2, 3 years, I see us staying either at seven or going down. And as bad as that sounds, I think that's where we're going. Unless fingers crossed, we can unearth some new gems by giving them opportunities. I hope they learned
Yeah,
their lesson from Sri Lanka. All
for sure.
right, cool, man, Renat. And again, it was good chatting to you and good to do this after such a long time. We wanted to have some episodes of the World Cup too, but just the games
Yeah,
themselves and with work and everything, it was either watch the game or do your own thing, and you just time just ran out. We couldn't do this, but hopefully we'll do start doing these more often. So thanks, man. Thanks for joining.
sounds good. Yeah, no, thank you, and we'll talk again.
Yep. Bye bye.